Searching for music for your next video?
Monday, and this is Cannabis Chat. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and we are live streaming on twitch.tv. Of course, you probably know that if you're actually watching this, unless, of course, you're watching us on our social media outlets like YouTube and Facebook. But every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 4 p.m. Eastern to 6 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be sitting right here until somebody can take my place. And yes, I am looking for someone to take my place. Always looking for new talent, always looking for people who know and want to talk about this wild and crazy plant called cannabis sativa. Now, you might know it as weed, or you might know it as pot, or grass, or herb, or sticky wicky, or any of the million other nicknames that this cannabis plant has had over the thousands and thousands of years that has been used medicinally by the human race. And here in the United States of America, there's a green wave going on in Washington, D.C., and in states around this great country of ours. And we're moving towards legalization, decriminalization, acceptance, breaking down that stigma. Or this is what we're looking to do in our world in this historic time. It is amazing to me that in my 63 years of age now, that I can actually talk about this plant, talk about the benefits of the plant as far as its medicinal uses, and also the fun things that you can do with it as well, as long as you use it responsibly. Now, let me give you a little idea about what's going to be happening today. In about 30 minutes, we will be live streaming. And no, actually, we're live streaming now. But in 30 minutes, we'll actually be live talking to a gentleman by the name of Morris Beegle. He's out of Colorado. He is a hemp master. It's the best way to describe him. He hosts a program called Let's Talk Hemp. He heads up a company that is hemp-based in Colorado. And he's probably being driven crazy by what is going on in Washington, D.C. with the two various, actually, I think the three, U.S. Department of Agriculture, the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and also the FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, because they can't figure out what to do with CBD. They don't know what the heck hemp is versus cannabis sativa, what has THC, what doesn't have THC. There's so many issues and so many questions about this wild and crazy plant. And we will be taking your chats and your questions during the next couple of hours, and hopefully we can enlighten you a little bit with this cannabis chat. Now, we will always be taking a break at 20 past 4. That 4:20 code that's been used forever by the cannabis enthusiasts out there. Yes, we take a break, and you can do whatever you want in that 4:20 break. If you happen to be home and you want to partake, that's totally up to you. It's your home, it's your life, it's your body. No government should be able to tell you what you can do with it. Now, if you are at work, I probably would wait until after you are off the clock before you partake. That would be my advice at this point in my life. And if you just want to play along at home and listen to the great sounds of Jonathan Edwards and his famous song Shanty, well, that's a completely different animal. Please enjoy it as much as possible. That song was part of my upbringing. It was it was the East Conference New England area code, if you will, as opposed to the 420 and the Waldo's group that made it famous out in San Rafael, California, way back in 1971, which was a long time ago. All right, now let's get right to a few of these items here on our show, and I can tell you that it looks like we're going to be doing an educational show every Wednesday. It does look like that on Fridays, we're going to be talking about Finance Fridays. Just in case you'd like to get into the cannabis business, or perhaps want to invest in the cannabis business, or perhaps you want to start a business that has something to do with cannabis, whether that is with CBD or many of the other cannabinoids that are part of this crazy plant that is out there. So again, we will be taking your chat. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, you can chat with us. And I have a staff of thousands waiting for people to chat with us. Okay, not thousands, but there's a couple, okay? What can I tell you? We're a startup. So Fridays will be Finance Fridays, Wednesdays will be Education, and yes, we already have a guest, courtesy of our production coordinator, Beth Dost. Actually, Beth Dost is the guest. Isabel Turner is the production coordinator. And Beth Dost is coming in studio to join me on Wednesday to educate you, the viewer, about the cannabis sativa plant and any questions you might have about it. She is a registered nurse. She's also involved with a company, a startup company called the Weegits. And I prefer the Weegits whenever I partake because it has a multiple filtration system in it, and it calms the whole experience down so you're not hacking all the time. Now, what's going on in the cannabis world right now? And today, I can tell you right now that the New England Cannabis Convention, NECAN as it is known in the business, is online as we speak, doing their couple of days of virtual conferences. This is the latest thing in the cannabis universe. You know, for the first few years, it's always been conventions and trade shows, and that's been the best way for people in the business to get to know each other. They meet up at conventions and they exchange cards and they start to do business and have appointments. But now everything is done online because we are in the COVID situation, the pandemic. So while we are practicing social distancing here in this studio, they being the cannabis industry, has had to pull all these trade conferences online. And Morris Beegle from the hemp world will get to talk a little bit about the impact on his business. Has it been impacted when you take a in-person convention and move it online? Is it the same experience? I'm sure you have an opinion about that out there as well. So that'll be at 4:30. We'll actually create a podcast inside this live stream. There's so many different technologies and so many different ways to create content, distribute content. You can call content whatever you want, a tweet or an Instagram or a chat or a TikTok or a Snapchat or whatever the heck you want to call it. We will talk about it as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with my background and know who I am, I used to be somebody in this market in Boston, outside of Boston, Massachusetts here. I used to have my own sports talk show and a highlight show, an interview show on New England Cable News. I was a practicing professional sportscaster for 25 years, and I can tell you right now, just because I'm not on doing it regularly, I still love sports. It was extremely strange yesterday watching football for the first time this year and not having any fans. And I will say this about this: I don't like the canned sound at all, especially when it conflicts with the announcers' levels. So they got to do a little bit better job on the mix. And that's the audio levels between the announcers and the canned noise that the television producers are using to enhance the viewing experience. But we also think it can also detract from that viewing experience as well. And if you are following the NBA, as you might know, the Eastern Conference Finals are all set. That would be the Boston Celtics taking on the Miami Heat. That's seeds number 3 and seeds number 5, because both the Bucks and the Raptors now in the Eastern Conference are out. And the Lakers are waiting to find out who they play, either the Nuggets or the Rockets, I believe, right? I think the Rockets are still alive. They lost a player, though, because he had some company in one of their rooms there. But the Nuggets and Clippers are playing. Excuse me. The Nuggets and Clippers are playing. So why would an NBA player still hang around the bubble? I can guess a few things, but this guy, Daniel House Jr., is now out of the bubble because he actually entertained a guest in his hotel room in the bubble, and that is a no-no. But again, his season was over, so really, I'm not quite sure what we're still doing in the bubble. That's another story. Taking a look at the NFL, because I am going to insert a few NFL notes here. The big story yesterday was the fact that the Patriots actually started a quarterback that wasn't named Brady or Bledsoe. And that has been not happened for 20 years, because their old quarterback, Mr. Tom Brady, is now wearing the colors of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and his team took on the New Orleans Saints yesterday, and yes, the Saints beat Brady's Bucks fairly handily. I believe it was a 34-24 or 34-17 loss. I have so many notes here, I don't even know where to begin. I can tell you that the Patriots did win their game in Cam Newton's debut, and it's funny that story, the Brady going and Newton arriving story, also made national news. So that was really the biggest story of the day on opening day of the NFL on Sunday. Now, you could have certainly make a case that on Thursday night, when the Kansas City Chiefs opened up defense of their Super Bowl and they went to the center, the midfield line, the 50-yard line, and locked arms with each other, the two teams that were playing. And a lot of the fans in Kansas City took that opportunity to boo their distaste, because they actually had real fans, 17,000 fans in a 73,000 stadium. But they were there, and they were loud enough to boo that protest. And that has kind of lit up a lot of the sports talk radio lights out there and chat that's going on. And as far as I'm concerned, every single person in America has the right to voice their own opinion. And if you don't want politics in sports, then shut your eyes, because politics is part of sports. It always has been part of sports, because sports is entertainment. That means a lot of eyeballs are tuned into it, and that is an opportunity for these professional athletes to protest what they see are injustices, and they are aplenty in our world, especially during this Black Lives Matter movement that continues in this country. So that's my little take on what's been going on in sports. If you happen to be a footballer, okay, that's not necessarily American football, but European football or South American football. I call it soccer. The EPL, the English Premier League, is actually playing right now, and one of my favorite players that is playing, well, I'm not even sure he's in the lineup, but he's an American player named Christian Pulisic, and Chelsea is playing Brighton as we speak, because this is a live program. I am live. You could even take my temperature. Make sure I'm not running a temperature, but make sure that you are here and chatting with me. So that is the update on the sports world. Now let me give you a few notes on what's going on in the cannabis news world, and a reminder that we produce a weekly news video program called Weed Talk News, and I do it with the founder of Cannabis.net. His name is Kurt Dalton. We do that every week on Thursday night and then release it on Fridays. And this past week we had a lot of talk about this new some new laws that are going on, and one of the biggest ones has to do with, well, I don't even know where to begin on this. Now, I can say this about the IRS. This is definitely a time we can talk about the IRS. They've released guidelines for paying taxes for those in the cannabis industry. And yes, you have to pay them in cash because it's a federally illegal substance. There are so many problems in Washington, D.C. right now in regards to not necessarily the cannabis sativa plant with the THC in it, but the cannabis plant that they call hemp that has limited THC, under 0.3%. That's called hemp, and we'll get more on that from Morris Beegle a little bit later. But now the IRS is saying, how are you going to pay your taxes? You're going to pay them in cash, and now all of a sudden you can go online and find out answers to these questions about that. I can also tell you that the Washington state, the state of Washington, which is a legal state in the United States for cannabis possession, they're actually soliciting companies to do a study on the odor of weed and its effect on human health. Now, I'm not talking about the inhalation of the cannabis sativa plant. I'm not talking about smoking weed, okay? I'm talking about growing it and walking by the field and breathing in some of those aromas of those strains, and for some reason there are people out there who think that this could harm you. So now they want to study that. And of course the Washington state legislature has a budget for this, and wouldn't you know it, that the first three companies that came in looking for money to study this all were about double what was budgeted by the Washington state legislature. Just saying. Also, how about this for an interesting news item? That there's a group in Canada, a company called Tetra Biopharma, that is going to study the effects of THC on COVID-19. Now, earlier, we were able to talk with a doctor out of the University of Lethbridge, Alberta. His name is Dr. Igor Kovalchuk, and he studied the impact of the coronavirus when it is treated by some form of cannabis, whether it's with THC or without. And you can search that on our Pro Cannabis Media YouTube channel and find that out. That is by far the most watched interview that Kurt Dalton and I have done on our We Talk Now series. But that's where you can find that. And sure enough, in Canada, they are going to be studying this as well. And it's really interesting. I didn't know this, but did you know that those who have passed away from COVID-19, their cause of death is not COVID-19, it's ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. And now they're going to study the use of THC on that syndrome. And wouldn't you know it, the FDA has approved this. Now, the last time I checked, the FDA is the Federal Drug Administration, right? Isn't that their association, FDA? They're the United States federal group, right? Why do they have to? I don't understand. What kind of jurisdiction do they have in Canada? Because this is a Canadian company. So they're approving the study? I don't know. The federal government right now is just not doing a great job, let's just say. Wait, I've got more news items, I believe. I came prepared. At least I thought I did. Organized is a completely different animal, but I definitely came prepared for this. Oh, I know. Martha Stewart is getting into the weed business. She's always been working with canopy growth, and sure enough, she now has a CBD line that's out there. And yeah, so I know Martha Stewart's getting more involved with canopy growth and with weed. So anyway, we're coming closer and closer to the 4:20 hour when we take our first and right now our only break. But Lord knows, if you're interested in joining us and letting us promote your product in the cannabis world, we are happy to talk with you. You could certainly contact us at info@procannabismedia.com. That'd be info, I-N-F-O, at procannabismedia.com. And we can certainly talk about some of the opportunities you have to join this Twitch universe and this cannabis chat that I'll be hosting on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. in this studio. And why do we take this 4:20 break? Well, again, a little history. Back in 1971, a group of high school kids from San Rafael, California. I know you find this hard to believe that people in California in the early 70s were actually using and enjoying cannabis, but that was going on, and it was going on in that high school. And these group of friends, I believe there's 5 guys, used to meet at 4:20 after school at the Louis Pasteur statue to catch a buzz, to meet there and then take a walk in the woods wherever you had to go in the 70s to partake. And this became code by law enforcement for whenever there was public consumption of cannabis going on. It would be, hey, there's 4:20 going on, and sure enough, that started to catch on, and now 4:20 is the code and the time for people to take a break who are pro-cannabis enthusiasts. So, with that in mind, we will take our 4:20 break, and we will leave you with one of my favorite songs of all time, and a singer by the name of Jonathan Edwards. And he made an appearance a few years back at a Portsmouth, New Hampshire radio studio and played what I consider to be my personal favorite cannabis-related song, and it's called Shanty. We'll give it to Jonathan to take it from here.
Yeah, this is a tune that I wrote back in 19... I've forgotten. We had a saying in our old band, one of my first bands in 1966 or so. What are you going to do tonight? Oh, just, like every other night, just going to lay around the shanty and put a good buzz on. Gonna sit down in the kitchen, fix me something good to eat. Make my head a little high, make the whole day complete. Gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. Pass it to me, baby, pass it to me slow. We'll take time out to smile a little before you let her go. We're gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. You're on something. Go ahead. Rick Brodsky, everybody. Nothing to do and there's always room for more. Fill it, light it, shut up and close that door, baby. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Take it, okay. Prohibition never works, it's time to realize it. It grows in my backyard, it's time to legalize it. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. I'm gonna sit down in my rented car, I'm gonna jam it into drive. Gonna head on out and play at WSCA with Sean, I'm glad I'm alive. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Every night and day, we're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on.
Nice. It's Friday. Thank God. Thank God Jonathan Edwards is joining us live in the WSCA studios.
There we go. Hey, we're back. Thank you, Jonathan Edwards, and thank you, radio station up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, for hosting that. And I love live music, and we're always encouraging new live music to be shared with you, the home viewer. Music and cannabis definitely goes together. There's no doubt. There are people out there who enjoy listening to tunes while they are a little buzzed. I get that. I also recognize that this is predominantly a gaming channel for younger people, and I will certainly do my best to try to relate to the younger audience, even though that's the only thing that's young about me is my last name. What can I tell you? All right, so we are going to continue with our cannabis chat here. And we are also going to be waiting for Morris Beegle when we give him a call in about 5 minutes. He is a hemp guy from Colorado, and we will actually create a podcast inside the live stream that we're doing. So a podcast, by definition, is an audio file that you can just listen to. And of course, everybody, I think, knows what a podcast is these days. But there are different definitions as far as it goes when it comes to an actual digital file. Because if there's video involved, to me, if it looks like TV, sounds like TV, it's a TV interview. And this is what we've been trying to do on Pro Cannabis Media with either my In the Weeds podcast or our Weed Talk Now series, our Weed Talk Live series, and our Weed Talk News series of programs. We're also going to be adding programs to our programming live stream on our Twitch channel. Vote Pro Podcast is already part of our streaming schedule. We will be streaming from 6 p.m. to 9-ish today with other In the Weeds programs, including the latest one that we just released with a real fun guy out of New Jersey named Chris Vaglio. And he is with the RockIt Growth Agency, and he is a true character, someone who I really had never talked to before we got on camera and started doing our little Zoom interview. I can tell you that this guy's got great personality. He's got about 20 years in the video production space. He is a self-proclaimed Star Wars nerd and a whiskey drinker. So needless to say, if you're posting that on your LinkedIn profile, you've got confidence and you've got character. And that is Chris, and he'll be coming up at 6 o'clock. I think we're live streaming that latest In the Weeds with Jimmy Young on that one. So we've got another couple minutes to go till we start with Morris Beegle. So let me give you a little background on him and why we are talking to people in the hemp universe. Well, as you might know, there's a plant out there that does not have intoxication effects, at least not enough to get you intoxicated, and that would be hemp. By federal law, the Farm Bill in 2018 of December, sure enough, they signed in the hemp law that allowed you to grow hemp legally. But they never did a lot of research on the different cannabinoids, these different chemicals that are available in both the hemp plant and in the cannabis sativa plant that has THC in it. So you've got plants that have THC, which is the intoxicating chemical in the cannabis plant, and then you have those that are not, and that would be hemp. But did you know that you can not only use hemp in lotions and potions and droppers and tinctures, but you can also use it in make clothes out of it? You can actually make hempcrete out of hemp. That's right, similar to concrete, except it's hempcrete. And using hemp is also far more beneficial for the carbon footprint that humans have had for generations, what we've done to the various climates. I don't know if you've noticed that there's a little climate change going on. You know, millions of dollars of fields in Oregon and in California have been burnt because of these horrible fires. And you know, now what do? How do you regrow? Well, luckily, the thing about cannabis and hemp, you can regrow it even in a forest that's been destroyed. It's an amazing thing. And sure enough, we're making a call right now to Morris Beegle, the co-founder of the Colorado Hemp Company.
Hello, this is Morris.
Hello, Morris Beegle. My name is Jimmy Young, and I'm calling to you from Boston, Massachusetts. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Jimmy. How are you doing today?
Very good. And I appreciate you coming on with us. We're live streaming on Twitch TV, and I know you host a podcast called Let's Talk Hemp, right?
That is correct.
So we're going to combine the Let's Talk Hemp stuff with the Cannabis Chat that we're doing live here on the Twitch.tv channel that we just started last week. And I really do appreciate you coming on and playing along a little bit with us as we talk about the benefits of hemp, its many uses, and how our federal government is doing the best job they can of screwing up a new industry. Would that be an accurate statement, Morris?
I would say that that's pretty right on there, Jimmy.
Well, that's cool. Well, I appreciate it. So my podcast, Morris, is called In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to pretend that we're actually going to produce a podcast, but we're going to do it inside our live stream on Twitch, if that's okay with you.
Fine with me.
Terrific. Okay. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. And now we are joined by Morris Beegle. Let me tell you a little bit about Morris. He is the president and co-founder of the Colorado Hemp Company, and he's also been involved with hemp for many, many years. Morris joins us from Colorado. Where in Colorado are you located, Morris?
I am located out of Fort Collins, Colorado, but I'm actually, right now, I'm in New York.
Okay. Well, at least you're in the same time zone. And what are you doing in the Big Apple, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm actually not in the Big Apple. I'm upstate New York, and I'm hanging out in Binghamton right now. But I've been out here for the last couple of weeks. I'm out here with my girlfriend, and we went up with her family to Skinny Atlas Lake and hung out there for like 10 days. And then we went up to Saratoga Springs and Lake George. And we actually got out of Colorado during this whole fire thing that's going on out there. And we've got terrible breathing conditions, and it's been nice here in New York. Upstate New York is beautiful, and I'm actually glad to be out here.
Absolutely. Don't blame you at all. And did you escape that strange 70-degree range in temperature day that happened in Denver a few weeks back, where you had some snow, if I remember correctly?
Correct. It was like 100 degrees, between 90 and 100 on that Monday, and then Tuesday it dropped straight to 30 degrees. And yeah, I was out here, and unfortunately there's a lot of people growing hemp out there, and that situation is wreaking havoc for a lot of hemp farmers, because when your crops freeze, it's really going to mess with the cannabinoid profile, and a lot of people are going to lose a lot of money because of that.
And it's amazing, Morris, like there wasn't enough challenges to trying to start a new industry with all the different regulations that everyone either in the cannabis sativa world or the hemp world were involved with. Now you've got to deal with climate change and these fires and the destruction of crops. I mean, have you ever seen a more challenging time to be in this kind of business?
No, not at all. And you throw a pandemic in the mix and our current political state, and it just makes for, I don't know, end times? I hope not.
I will tell you this. I know you feel this way. 2020 can't get over fast enough. Am I right?
That is correct.
Let's talk about the future of hemp and what's going on in Washington, D.C. too right now. I always make fun of Senator Mitch McConnell, because I really don't think he really understood, or maybe he did and I'm the dumb one, exactly what was involved with turning that farm bill in 2018 into law without having any kind of a plan for what to do with some of the cannabinoids that can be extracted from full spectrum plants, whether they be hemp or THC-based cannabis sativa. Again, I have no idea why he did it, but I'm glad he did, because it allows us to at least talk about this and accept the fact that there is actually a big difference between these two plants. And it has to do with the amount of THC, the intoxication chemical that is in the cannabis sativa plant. So walk me through what your vision is of what's going on over the last few years since the Farm Bill has come into play, and how that has affected your business, because I'm guessing you have a vibrant business in Colorado one way or another, no matter what you're growing. Yes?
Correct. And you're fairly correct there with Mitch McConnell. And, Mitch was definitely instrumental in helping things at the federal level to get this farm bill passed and to legalize hemp and take it off the controlled substances list. and he's an anti-marijuana guy. So there's just this strange dichotomy there, where Kentucky really needs to pass medical and recreational. It needs to be passed everywhere. But Mitch is one of the biggest obstacles in the marijuana legalization part of it. But yet he was a champion on the hemp side. You're correct, and he really didn't understand this cannabinoid side. And in turn, that has made multiple really good Kentucky hemp organizations and companies go bankrupt. Right. The things that he was pushing for to make Kentucky a leader, all of a sudden, because there's this crap with the FDA and the USDA and the DEA has still got their mitts involved in all of this, when they're actually supposed to be out of it. I mean, that was the whole point. Get the DEA out, let the USDA manage this crop like any other agricultural crop, corn, soy, wheat, strawberries. That's where it should be. The DEA just needs to be out of it, but yet it's turned into this entire cluster that's all these obstacles still for the industry. And, here we are today. But fortunately in Colorado, we haven't been as affected because, A, we've got a really good governor in Jared Polis, who is the guy who actually, when he was in the House of Representatives and a Colorado representative from, I don't know, I think it was from probably 2010 through 2018 before he ran for governor. He's the guy that actually wrote the original description and language that was in the 2014 Farm Bill that allowed states to start doing pilot programs and so forth. And Mitch actually kind of tried to take credit for that, but it really didn't come from Mitch. It came from Colorado. But here we are today, and we've got a quasi-legal hemp industry still with lots of issues going on at the federal level from a regulatory standpoint. And I think here in a couple of years it'll all get figured out, and we'll have a good understanding of where we're going. But as it stands right now, it's still this big cloud of we're not exactly sure.
I know the word you want to use after cluster. Trust me, I get it. We do have a plus 21 audience, but we don't need to say it. We totally understand what exactly is going on in Washington, D.C. And I'm amazed, to be honest, how much cannabis, the role that the plant is playing in the lack of political process that's been going on in Washington, D.C., that they can't even pass a second COVID relief bill because the Republicans don't want to hear anything having to do with cannabis, even though, there's plenty of states out there that ruled it an essential product to their economy and to their own world. Do you think we will ever get past this, or do we really, is anything ever going to happen before November and the election?
No, so I guess at the end of this month, they're going to be voting on cannabis decriminalization or legalization. What is it?
The House. You talking about the House?
Yeah, so and which is, it doesn't mean anything anyway, except it'll pass, and yay, the House passed it, but the Senate's not going to do anything, of course.
Right.
It's election time, and the only way we're going to see anything done comprehensively is if we have a Biden presidency and we have a democratically controlled House and Senate. Then we will make progress as far as decriminalization. We'll make progress on the hemp side. And can the Democrats screw this up? Absolutely. They screw up most everything, too. They're a little bit better than the Republicans. At least they seem to understand their platform is better. But they can screw up things almost as bad as Republicans can.
Well, that's the politicians and all. And yes, we could certainly get in. We could certainly get into that a little bit. I'm of the opinion that there should be zero money spent on political campaigns, and we make these people go out and actually talk to each other, as opposed to buying time and influencing vote and using social media to change elections. I get pretty disgusted by all that. Did you happen to know that the IRS, too, is now changing how they treat the cannabis universe a little bit and finally giving some guidelines on how you in the cannabis-related businesses get to pay taxes. There's now a Q&A, I guess, available online at the irs.gov website. And, like I said, how challenging, where does a hemp business do its banking?
That's a good question. The banking has been challenging for the hemp industry,
yep.
And even particularly on the cannabinoid CBD side. We have been pretty lucky because we produce events. We've got a hemp paper company. We do hemp merchandise. We do hemp guitars, and we're like traditional industrial hemp, and we're an event company. We've got a media platform, and we really haven't faced challenges until this year. We were with Wells Fargo, and I'm going to break this news to everybody right now because we haven't said anything, but Wells Fargo came to us and personally said, close down my account and my partner's account and our business account and my partner's mom's account because my partner was associated with her, and my partner's daughter's account. Because, and they didn't say why. They don't have to give a reason.
Right.
It's because we're in the hemp industry.
Right.
And we've got this WAFBA is our parent company. We are for Better Alternatives.
Yep.
And we did this specifically so we didn't have the word hemp in our banking or CBD or anything. But eventually because of who we do business with, they found out what we're doing. And they've shut down our accounts, so we had to move to another bank. And there are some friendly banks in Colorado that will help out hemp companies and around the country, but it's been super challenging. Yeah. And merchant processing has even been more challenging for most of these CBD companies.
Yeah. We too have had an account closed down, personal and business, because I was accepting money from a dispensary, which has been a longtime supporter of my podcast. And, I felt like I had paid my dues in the industry when that happened. It was like a initiation, if you will. But I'm sorry to hear, once again, the Safe Banking Act, needs to get passed. But again, the roadblock in the Senate with the Republican-controlled Senate. That, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say it's illegal, but it's certainly unjust. I just don't understand what is the problem of allowing the banks to do business here. And I know for a fact that it's one phone call by the President of the United States to the Department of Justice to reclassify cannabis. And I'm not going to be surprised. Nothing about this guy, by the way, surprises me. If that does not happen a week before the election, and all of a sudden he decriminalizes it, which will take a pin away from the Democrat platform. This guy, you can't really trust what's going on with the guy who's leading the free world in our country right now. But nothing will surprise me about that. Do you feel like the DEA and the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, will ever get to the point where they can clarify rules? I mean, there's all sorts of talk now, especially amongst the lawyers who are looking at some of the language that's out there and saying, they just have to change a phrase or two, and that will help the industry define exactly what is the product that they're growing. Do you think that they'll actually, we have an open public comment right now, don't we? Have like up until October 15th for the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You can get online and you can, voice your opinion about what's going on with hemp.
Yes, there's the open comment session that's going on right now. And the industry is going to state what it stated the last time, basically, when the IFR was released, which is the interim final rule. And I think what's going to happen is right now we're still operating basically on the 2014 Farm Bill, and which is a lot more ambiguous. And that's what we want to keep it at until the next Farm Bill. So I think the goal is to kick the can down the road. We're not going to implement this interim final rule because of the DEA stuff that's going on with the 15 days to process, and there's having to use DEA-approved labs. There's all kinds of mentions of the DEA in there. It's like 42 or 49 times. I don't know. It's a lot. And I think it's going to take an act of Congress to make some clarifications as to we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, and it'll get cleared up, and hopefully during all that, we're going to raise this 0.3% percentage to 1%, so it takes a lot more burden off the farmers. And that's one thing I really want to make mention of too. Farmers shouldn't be criminalized if their crops go hot and it goes to 0.5 or 0.7 and then have to destroy it or even face criminal charges. Why do we want to punish farmers for trying to grow a crop that's beneficial for human health, animal health, planetary health, when that minuscule amount of THC can be remediated downstream in processing and manufacturing, so by the time it goes to the consumer for consumption or an animal for consumption or even topicals, it's going to be compliant under FDA guidelines. It's absolutely ludicrous what we're trying to do to the farmer.
No question about it. It's one of the biggest injustices going on in our economy right now, and Lord knows the economy could use a little help. And I think why hurt the farmers? You know, again, they've had enough to deal with. Let's just say, right? Is it the manufacturing? Is it the extraction of the CBD from the hemp that turns into the tinctures that is perhaps the biggest gray area?
Yes, for sure. So when you extract all the oil from the flower,
yep,
and it's concentrated, so that's going to bring it above this 0.3% dry weight. Now it's wet and it's highly concentrated, and then when you create products with it, then it gets diluted. And you can also completely remediate that THC out so it's THC free and still remains broad spectrum. But there's all kinds of things that can be done in the processing and the manufacturing process at this point in time. And it will, all of this extracted material is going to be hot the way the DEA is looking at it. So all of that would be illegal, and then they could go in and arrest all these processors for something that's not ever going to go to the consumer. It's just this intermediary step that's going to be fixed by the time it gets to the shelves.
Right, and it's interesting. Law enforcement and district attorneys don't even want to deal with this either. They don't want to deal really. So to me, getting it descheduled or unscheduled even would accomplish a lot here, because wouldn't that immediately take the DEA out of the equation?
Yes. And with that, I just want to say we don't need to defund the police. We need to defund the DEA and just put that agency to rest.
They've screwed it up pretty good since the very beginning, let's just say, back in 1937, right? With that first bill. I want to talk to you a little bit about the uses of hemp and educate those that maybe are not as enlightened about the type of products that can be made out of hemp and why it can help what's going on with the climate change issue that is rearing its ugly head, not just with the fires in the western part of the United States, but also the hurricanes coming up from the southeast coast. There's something like they're running out of names already in the hurricane season. I mean, I don't know what more proof you need to know that humans have screwed up this environment, our climate. And doesn't hemp have an opportunity to help clean it up?
It certainly does. And not only from the way we can implement it into our agricultural system from an organic and regenerative growing standpoint, where we don't have to spray a lot of these petrochemicals on our crops. And if we use this as a rotating crop, it remediates the soil, provides nutrients to the soil. It sequesters carbon, which is a problem. We need to be sucking the carbon out of the air and back into the soil. And if we're not spraying it, then these chemicals aren't running off into the streams and into the lakes and getting into the oceans, which acidifies them. And then the products that can be made from the hemp plant, we've already talked about the flower and the cannabinoid side of it, and so there you've got your therapeutic dietary supplements, which are good for human health and animal health. You've got the seeds or the grain that then can be eaten as a protein source, as well as crushed into oil that you can put into smoothies and onto salads. And it's a very high in protein, omega 3, 6, and 9, perfect ratio, great minerals, amino acids, very good for your health. And then the stalks, the waste byproduct material, we can build houses out of that. We can make bioplastics and composites out of that. We can make paper and packaging out of that. And disrupting those industries, which all have a very high environmental impact, by utilizing natural materials that we grow from the earth rather than extracting from the earth, or clear-cutting forests to make paper, there's just a lot of benefits that can be had by growing hemp. And by rotating it into corn and soy and these monocrop agricultural systems that, again, are destroying our topsoil, that are wreaking havoc on our environment.
And we certainly, I don't know how many more examples you need of that. Go back to hemp as a building source, because I understand, I think do you know who John Dvorak is locally here?
Oh, yeah. John is the best, as I like to say. And he's like...
Explain. Why is he the best?
And I'm sure he heard that.
Well, he definitely follows us, and I've met John. I've done a feature on him. And by the way, when we booked you, I checked out you. I said, "Hey, who's this guy Morris? Do you know him, John?" Because John's my go-to hemp guy, And unfortunately, I was actually invited him into the studio, but he wasn't able to make it. But he talks about hempcrete, right? Is there not a way to create building materials out of hemp?
Yeah, and we've been building houses and structures out of hemp for hundreds to thousands of years. Hemp has been utilized in the building process for a long, long time, and they're doing it a lot in Europe at this point, and we're just getting going on it in the United States. And there's been several dozen structures that have been built utilizing hemp, from the walls where you would use hempcrete, or plaster, or insulation, or paneling. And there's a variety of materials that are in the house that can all be made out of hemp, or at least have hemp as a main ingredient within whatever that material is.
And you made some comments earlier about the benefits to the pet world, and everyone seems to. I think we spend more money on pets than we do almost on our own education system. There's probably something wrong there. But what benefits have you found, and what benefits that pets get from taking some kind of either CBD and hemp concoction? I don't know how else to describe it.
With the pet world, it seems to be more of pets that have pain issues or kind of arthritis issues. Maybe they've got appetite issues. That's where I would say that a lot of that is. And then beyond kind of the pet market, you've got the animal feed market and eating hemp meal, which is made from pressing the hemp seeds. It's like a byproduct of human food, where you press the hemp seeds, and then you've got these shells that would, in turn, you can make protein powder out of. But that's also a hemp meal that can be mixed in for animal food, for whether that's horses or cows or pigs or chickens. And right now, there's a group called the Hemp Feed Coalition that's working with the FDA and trying to go through all the processes with the agencies to get this as an approved feedstock, which has already been done in Canada. It's been done in Europe. But here in the United States, we like to make sure that we do things over and over again, even though it's been proven in other parts of the world. So we like redundancy here.
Yes, we do. Well, especially if it works. Part of your business has been events and having trade shows and conventions, and needless to say, COVID-19 has pretty much shut down every trade show, with or without THC. I know you've gone over to a virtual side of things. Can you put a percentage on how much different it is? And I'm guessing you've lost quite a bit of money, at least projected revenue, with no conventions.
Yeah, so we had the Noco Hemp Expo scheduled for the end of March, and we were out at Expo West at the beginning of March, which is a huge natural products expo. And when we were out there, they actually canceled the event, and that was the beginning of the cascade. Mm-hmm. The following week, South by Southwest canceled, and then we canceled, and then the NBA canceled, and then it was like everything was canceled. So we immediately pivoted right into the cloud and did an Earth Week virtual event, which was a conference and a trade show. We had virtual exhibitors, and we had a pretty good attendance. We jumped into doing panels and keynotes and had a bunch of recorded content up there and networking areas. And we did it again in summer for summer solstice. And it's been good because that's really the only option that we've had. But I'm sure you've seen a lot of people are putting on these virtual conferences and trade shows now, and we're trying, but there's just a missing component where you just don't have this face-to-face and this interaction, and it's not the same thing.
No.
And I've been doing events for a long time. I come from the music business, and seeing what's happened to the music industry and live events and that sort of thing. I mean, we have to get back to in-person events. I don't think that we can survive for that much longer just hanging out in the virtual realm. I think it's a good thing that we can do right now. It's a way for us to stay connected, but there's just this lacking component of it, and it can only go on for so long.
Well, I mean, I think it can only go on as long until we get some kind of a vaccination program going. And I mean, the statistics about when that might happen get more and more dire every day if you keep track of all that, and I'm sure you do. So you're missing that human element when you go online and you try to meet someone on a virtual basis, as opposed to where you can actually communicate with them face to face. And it's something, as an educator, I've preached for many, many years, that the power of the in-person meeting and the power of the referral, the personal referral, and also basic communication techniques, where most communication, some will say as much as 90% of communication, is nonverbal. And now you're actually putting more communication pressure on humans to be better at it verbally than actually using hand expressions or eye expressions, or your whole body language kind of disappears when you are on a flat screen. That too is a challenge, is it not?
I would agree with that for sure.
How are we going to get back to conventions, Morris? That's kind of the bigger question.
I think we're going to get there, and it's funny, right now this week in Colorado, where our trade show is, it's at the National Western Complex. There is a gem and mineral show going on, and it's a 10-day event, and they've spread it out. There's like 7 different spaces they're using, and so there actually is a live in-person trade show and conference going on right now at where we're going to be doing ours in March, because we kicked it down the road. We kicked it to August, and then we had to kick it back to next year, so we're not doing any in-person events this year on any sort of scale. We have had a couple of small little industry gatherings where it's private, and it's just not that very many people, and it's got off the beaten path and off the radar. But I think that you're going to see trade shows coming back across the country, and there'll be new protocols, socially distanced, you'll have masks, and there will be capacity limitations, but it is coming. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no, I would think it's also, and like anything in your business, another challenge to deal with, the masks, the social distancing, whereas you used to have booth after booth after booth. I'm going to guess you're going to go booth empty, at least on the floor plan, and then probably have to have more real estate to just have exhibitions of like 250 people instead of in one area packed in, like you're saying that is going on already in Colorado, multiple venues, having them spread out at different places and maybe even different times. That's got to be the only way to make it work. Yeah, you think?
That's, at this point in time, that is correct. And we'll see where it is, let's say 8 or 9 months from now or a year from now. I think that we will get through this in the course of the next year. I don't think our species can handle being locked up and having to do all this for too much longer without completely going off the rails.
Right. Oh no, most people are a little off the rails now already, and you know, you're seeing it in college campuses everywhere, that they've opened up dorms and athletics, and all of a sudden they've had to shut it right back down again because you're expecting young adults to understand the challenges, and it's polar opposite to the human element, let alone the college student element. And I don't know if you have family or any college-age kids, but I can tell you, my kid's 30, but I don't think I would have sent him back to college this semester. I just don't think it would have made a lot of sense.
Well, I've got a 13-year-old boy and a 17-year-old boy, and the 13-year-old, their school is a hybrid right now, and he's going in person for 2 days a week, but they've got like 7 to 10 people in the classroom, so it's all spread out and very minimal people. And then my high schooler is virtual right now, but they're going back to partial in person at the end of this month, and it's going to be probably fairly similar, where it's limited capacity per classroom of 10 or 15 people instead of 30 or 40 people. And we'll see how it goes. I hope that we can keep the schools open, but that very well could just all of a sudden shut down in October or November.
Yeah, and that does seem to be where we're going. And of course, while you have teenagers as young people in your household, the college kids are really out on their own. And it's not necessarily the social distancing in the classrooms and the hybrid delivery of the education. It's the off-hour socialization that has reared its ugly head. And for some reason, there are people out there who are actually surprised at this. And I'm like, how can you be surprised at this? This is normal of behavior of 18 to 22-year-old kids.
Yeah, they're going to go out, they're going to drink, and they're going to smoke weed, and they're going to hang out in crowds, and that's just the way it is. And
I don't know, how you're ever going to enforce that at any time. And I too have tried to just limit my socialization to small groups of 10, maybe 12, 13, as long as I know that they're all family members for the most part, and they've all quarantined and kept their distance away from others and all that. But I do see, and I think you're actually a little bit more optimistic than I am about when we might see trade shows and conventions coming back. I think that MJ Biz in December still is on as an in-person convention in Las Vegas, but I can't see how they're going to be doing that in December, especially if we're going to see another peak. And that does seem to be the predictions, no matter what the election turns out to be in November.
Correct. I got their email, I think, last week. And right now they're planning on an in-person event as well as this hybrid virtual event. And they're trying to do things a little differently so they can do both. But I think it's going to be challenging for sure to see them pull off an event in Vegas. How many people are going to want to go to Vegas after the election, where here's the peak coming? I mean, here's winter coming, flu season's coming, and there could be a resurgence and another peak with COVID. So that's going to be very challenging for the MJ Biz folks. Yeah,
and they're good folks. I know Chris Walsh, and they do a great job out there. That was quite an experience. Last year, I did get to go to my first one, but Morris Beegle, I so appreciate you taking the time out on. Sounds like you're on a vacation, and I appreciate that. And I know you're enjoying the crisp air that has been a part of the Northeast over the last 72 hours or so. This past weekend in New England was just magnificent in so many ways, comfortable, dry air. And I do feel guilty sometimes about being in the Northeast when I look at the news and I see what people in Colorado and Washington State and California and Oregon are going through. I don't know how people live there knowing that the extremes of climate change can rear their ugly head and be on their front door really in a matter of days, if not hours.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy what's going on out there for sure. And the weather, as you said, has been amazing here the last several days. It's been good the whole time I've been out here, and real clean air, a far cry from what it's been in the Front Range of Colorado, and definitely California and Oregon right now are getting hammered. So thoughts and prayers and good energy to all those folks out there.
Absolutely. And a plug for Let's Talk Hemp. Tell me, I'm guessing it's distributed in all our favorite podcast distribution networks.
Yep, it's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, and actually we're taking a break right now, and I'm going to launch a new season here, hopefully in October. It might be in November, unless I kick it into next year. I'm been kind of taking a break and just jumping on other people's programs and talking about whatever they want to talk about, like we did today, and I'm having a good time doing this.
Well, Morris, thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out away from your own time off, if there ever is such a thing in the world of entrepreneurship and what have you. But again, enjoy the rest of your vacation, and I look forward to talking with you again. And I'll be honest, I'll be happy to give you an open invite anytime on our program as we build out our own program, and we try to give a voice to the entire cannabis industry, not just the THC, marijuana-based cannabis, but also the hemp-based universe as well. So you're welcome here anytime, Morris Beegle.
Well, hey, thanks, Jimmy. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you, and I will hit you up for coming back on your show.
You got it, man. All right. Well, certainly when you're ready to launch again in October, we'll reconnect. So for Morris Beegle, that's going to do it for this edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. Cannabis Chat continues, though, on Twitch. So don't go away. And that's it. Thank you, Morris. He's gone. Fair enough. Terrific. And that was a good interview. Very interesting stuff from Morris Beegle from the hemp world. And so this is where we get to talk a little bit with anybody who's still out there who might want to chat about cannabis or hemp, because otherwise you're going to listen to me for the next, 40 minutes or so, or until my man, Dan French, decides he wants to queue up something. I don't know what else we have. We have the In the Weeds to talk about. What's that? Yeah, I'd love to do that. It's something we had talked about anyway. We have a whole bunch of In the Weeds best of programs that we are planning on live streaming for the next few hours. 3 hours. Three in the Weeds are lined up. Yep, and We Talk Now. One We Talk Now. See, eventually the guy that I'm talking to will be wearing a microphone, but he's very shy. He goes behind the camera. He's comfortable behind the camera. We're happy he's back there, okay, because he does make sure that everything works correctly. But we definitely want to interact a little bit more on this program. It's amazing what we've done in about a week's time. It's not like we've been doing this for years and years. Yes, I've been doing video production and television for a long time. But this whole newfangled social media world and using Twitch and some of the other social media platforms that we have our content on. But we do live stream past broadcasts, past interviews on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays here on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So, Dan, are you ready to go to the fresh In the Weeds that we have set up? Okay, so for now, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you to Isabel and to Dan French, who are here to help me with this show, getting it off every week or so. Wednesday, we've got a in-studio guest that will be joining me, and Lord knows I really enjoy it when I have an opportunity to talk with someone. So if you're interested in working with us in any capacity, info@Pro Cannabis Media is how you get to us, and we do respond. So remember, share, like, subscribe, all that neat stuff. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to Cannabis Chat, and we'll be back. Well, actually, we're going to not go anywhere. We're just going to pick up right where we left off. Take it away, Dan.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young, and I am joined right now by a gentleman from New Jersey, which happens to be the state of my birth. And yes, I got out of Newark fast when I was born in 1957. Chris Vaglio is with us. He's from Rockaway, New Jersey. And isn't there a beach near Rockaway?
I wish there was. I mean, there's a little lake with a beach, but Rockaway Beach, that's Queens.
Okay, I got you.
But
Fair
every
enough.
time I hear the Ramones song, I'm like, yes.
There you go. I knew there was something in my brain that had something to do with the beach.
Right.
Chris, tell me a little bit about yourself. You host a podcast. You've got an agency. You're a pro cannabis guy. Give me your life story in a minute or two, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. So basically, yeah, I mean, I actually just started a brand new consulting coaching agency called RockIt Growth Agency. Mm-hmm. And when I say it's brand new, Jimmy, it's brand spanking new. And but the idea of this has been sitting with me for a couple of years now. So I'll back up a little bit. In 2000, I started a video production agency with now my ex-business partner called Gray Sky Films. And the two of us together, we actually met in college in 1992. We're best friends. We started this company as best friends and just successfully ended my business relationship with him, but we are still best friends. So I'd like to stress that because we're one of the rare stories, I think, where the business partnership dissolved extremely friendly. But I started this company with him 20 years ago. We grew it 20 years, made movies, worked with commercials, television, broadcasted a lot in the music industry. And that was our first few years. We did a lot of music video work, worked with a lot of labels, artists, things like that, and got to travel a lot, work with some amazing brands, lots of marketing and advertising agencies. So, coming out of it, at the start of this year, I was definitely, the company had just come off one of our greatest years ever as a company. And, January and February, we were looking awesome. This year was looking to be great. And, unfortunately, the pandemic happened here and, definitely rocked our world, rocked us off our kilter a bit. But, when things like that start to happen, I became very introspective and things I thought about doing that I've been putting on hold really came to the forefront. And I just came to a realization that, I have really achieved everything I wanted to achieve with Gray Sky Films. I guess barring walking out of there with like $1 million or something like that. But, but really for me personally, creatively, I feel like I really achieved so much there. And, I really had to come at peace with myself and say, I am ready for a new challenge, a new journey. And what better way to do that than to take the 20 years of experience I had in building a company, a successful company, and owning and operating that, and being able to take that and then help other people who are struggling or who are stuck or who are frustrated in their businesses now and apply that to them. And so RockIt Growth Agency, the idea behind it is that I really want to work with business owners, individuals, entrepreneurs who, I'm going to take that again, I guess. I thought my phone was off, so sorry about that. Apologies.
That's all right.
So that's your one edit. Sorry.
No edits. I told you.
Right,
I'm not touching this.
All right, good. No edits. Here we go. So RockIt Growth Agency, the real foundation of it is what I'm looking to do is to, once again, take my 20 years of experience and knowledge and help other business owners who are frustrated, stuck, with when it comes to growing their networks. If they're seeing their network shrinking, especially around this time, if they're really struggling with business development and trying to convert networking into business development and sales for their company. And then also too, which is a big thing that I feel like I've done very well for myself and very well with Gray Sky, is personal branding and helping people to develop and grow their personal brand. And when I say personal brand, I think some folks out there get that, but the big thing is that, hey, while it's so important to have your company brand out there and messaging and vision first and foremost, what happens a lot of times is it just gets a little lost in the ether, right? It becomes a little bit of background, a little bit of noise. People may not engage with it as much, but you know, as the old adage is, people like to do business with people they like. That's where the personal branding comes into effect. If you're really out there and you're being engaging and setting yourself up as an expert in what you do, then you're going to get people to connect with you, and you're going to find that you'll do more business that way than actually doing it through like the regular company overarching branding. So that's a thing that I really work with people a lot to help them develop, because I often hear like, well, I'm not creative like you. I don't know how to create content. I don't know what to do. And I say, listen, take my background out of it. Everybody's creative. You just got to like tap into it. It's mindset. It's all about mindset. So that's what RockIt Growth Agency is in a nutshell. That was more than 60 seconds, but I just wanted to lay a foundation out there.
Chris, anybody who knows me knows that's why I put these limits on people, because I don't have a limit either. Okay, so
it's tough. Well, I'm trying to condense 20 years into this.
It's similar personalities, which is something I'm fascinated by. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention what is behind you, because you have, you are a collector. I know that you are a sports fan, and I know that you lean towards the New York area, which is fine. I support the hometown experience of every sports fan.
Right.
Okay. I don't, the whole Boston, New York thing that has been going on for generations, okay, since Babe Ruth in 1918, right? I put that to bed at about, I think it was when, let's see, the Red Sox were down 3-0, right? In 1 year, that was 2004, right? Yeah.
That was the amazing comeback.
And you know what? I'll be honest, when the Patriots won their first ever Super Bowl in 2001, I said, if the Patriots can win a Super Bowl, I expect the Red Sox to finally win a World Series.
Well,
and
they broke the curse.
You know, the 21st century, this has been the golden era of Boston sports. So I gloat now, and I don't even care. I am so spoiled, and I can so relate to the New York arrogance of the sports fans during the 60s and 70s and 80s when I was growing up, because the New York teams seemed to win all that time, and the
Boston spoiled
teams always seemed to lose. So, you know, we have now morphed into that tri-state area as far as the arrogance of the sports fan. I'm comfortable with that. That being said, I'd like you to walk me through a little bit of the Star Wars stuff that's behind you, because that Darth Vader thing right behind you is crazy. How did you?
So
go ahead.
So a lot of this stuff, I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started going. I mean, Star Wars has been a huge influence on me. I mean, yes, I always say I am a certified Star Wars nerd. I got, Star Wars tattoo, the whole sleeve going on here. And, it's just, but it's been such a huge fabric of my life. And honestly, it's the foundation of why I even got involved in creative and filmmaking, because, as much as I'm such a fan of, the movies, the production, everything associated with it. I mean, it really boils down to one thing for me. The reason why all this stuff is behind me is magic, right? Star Wars represents magic for me. It represents the magic of filmmaking, but really more so the magic of imagination, the power of the mind. The fact that all this was came out of one person's mind, George Lucas, and he was able to come up with a great story, a great creative idea that then got other people involved. And it's just amazing to me how something like that could permeate and connect with so many people and want to be involved and want to create and take it to whole other levels. And so obviously the collection and all the toys and the different things I've got here, some of it's all very, nostalgic. A lot of it's from my youth. Some of it's brand new. But when I look at this and I have it behind me, it actually like just, this is going to sound a little cheesy, but looking at it and seeing it every day constantly keeps me reminded of why I do what I do, and the feeling of magic that I felt as a child watching these films and buying the toys and playing, and that creativity. It's like what powers me today. It really does. It sounds a little hokey, but it's just part of my mental mindset and sort of what keeps me going and motivated and just feeling inspired every single day. So there's lots of stuff behind here. The one thing I'll show you real quick is this is the one piece that I'll tell you the quick story again, since I told you offline. But so my daughter, when before she was born, we were trying, like anybody else, we're trying to figure out what are the name. And, since I'm so Star Wars inspired, I actually can't believe I got my wife on board with this. But so if anybody's familiar with the Star Wars universe, in the books, Han Solo and Princess Leia had twins, Jason and Jaina Solo. Right. Not canon. So in the timeline that's out there now, it's in what's called expanded universe now. But so we loved the name Jaina Solo so much that we named our daughter Jaina, and instead of the way the Star Wars spelling is Jaina, we changed the I to the Y. So that's a little bit. So when they released a figure of Jaina Solo, I was like, obviously I have to own that.
That's right. And that's so it's Jayna.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So that's how my daughter's name is spelled. Yeah.
And it just so happens my initials are James Andrew Young, Jay. So
there you go.
So there you go. So there's a Star Wars connection and
a connection. Yeah.
So
yeah, and
Chris,
of course, Darth Vader's rocking the RockIt Growth Agency swag over here too.
I see the RockIt thing. What role has cannabis played in your life, Chris? I've got to ask the question.
No, I appreciate it. That's a really great question. I mean, so cannabis for me, it's actually something that I got involved with later in life. Actually, I did not go the typical route of teenager and all that. I actually didn't even try cannabis for the first time until after I was actually graduated from college, to be perfectly honest with you. That was my experience with it. My wife was actually has been using cannabis for quite some time, and it was actually with her that I actually was able to experience it for the first time, and it was great. And since then, I had been a fan of it recreationally. That was then the doorway into beginning to learn more about cannabis more than just being a recreational thing. And as we've gotten older, we've definitely turned to it more for medicinal purposes now. And especially my wife, she does have a card here in New Jersey. She is registered. She does suffer from a lot of pain. She has a lot of acute pain and a lot of chronic pain that she deals with. And so she medicates and it works. And so, it's been years, and we are very huge advocates of cannabis and its medicinal properties. And the fact of sitting where we are today, still, listen, it's the prohibition, right? We've been fighting this forever. And, and I will admit, I'm much more newer to the whole movement and getting involved. But, it's something that we do feel strongly about. And it's something that I just, at this point, it's ridiculous that we're still having these conversations and still having to fight through it. But, we just got to keep fighting and keep bringing awareness and education. And that's really going to be the way that I think the whole, we turn the tide is just constantly educating people on the benefits and how this medicine can help in so many ways rather than just constantly prescribing opioids.
And I know you've probably met a few people like I have over the last few years who say how cannabis has saved their lives or changed their lives. I've talked to many veterans who suffered from PTSD and have used cannabis to get off their opioids. The fact that we're already seeing movement in Washington, D.C., the fact that the House of Representatives is actually going to have a historic vote on the legalization of cannabis, even though you and I both know it's not going to get passed by the Senate. But the fact that it's there, talking about this as a political an item in my lifetime, and I'm much older than you, okay? I've been fighting it longer than you, okay?
Yes, you have been.
Right. So it's amazing that we can have these open conversations, that we can talk about the education. We can talk about how the science and the research has moved the needle this far, and how many of us expect that we're not going to stop. We're not going to go backwards. We're going forwards with this, no matter who gets elected in November,
right?
At least.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and like you said, I am meeting people all the time, and I am learning so much, and I am so open to learning, and I want to learn more, and I read things, I listen to people, I talk to people, and it's really expanded my mind even to more, you know, where it was, I was already on board, and it's not that I'm not on board. I keep learning more and more about the medicinal properties and how it works in the body, and it's absolutely fascinating. The science behind it is incredible. It really is, and it's just something that should not be ignored anymore.
And I think the more people find out about the benefits of this plant that God put on this earth, that has been used for thousands of years. One of the neatest pieces of information that I have learned, and I share this with a lot of people, is did you know that in the 1920s, United States MDs, doctors, wrote over 3 million prescriptions for cannabis before it was prohibited? Okay.
Didn't know that. That's amazing.
It is amazing to think about that. And here we are, you know, in the 21st century, and we're still fighting that stigma because the government put so much money into this war on drugs that, needless to say, has failed miserably. And more importantly now, as we continue to have these open conversations about race and injustice in this country, the role cannabis has played in that as an example of why Black people in this country feel so victimized by the laws and by the racist history that we've had. I mean, I was a history major in college, okay? I get it. I know all about the Jim Crow South, and yet I'm still learning about things like the riots in Oklahoma back in the day. I mean, it blows my mind that I'm living to talk about this in my lifetime, but the fact that we're still talking about this in my lifetime bothers me to no end. And it's why I enjoy talking with people that are certainly younger than me about the perspective and putting this all into perspective. Do you see a time where we will actually have federal legalization? And more importantly, can we expunge the records of those who have been most affected by the war on drugs and have been in jail for possession crimes for years? It just makes no sense.
It makes no sense, and it is so backwards and so biased. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I do think I really do. I'm gonna be positive about it. I really am. And you know, as many things as you can get negative about, I also want to be positive about the things that have happened and where we are going. And listen, just the fact that you've got the states in themselves coming and saying, you know what, Fed, like, we're going to do it ourselves. And obviously, if the Fed would get on board, things would be much easier. Transactions, everything, the decriminalization, all that stuff would then, it'd be a windfall. Yes, the money, the tax dollars generated. And, you know, when you talk about the deficits and this and that, and where we're going to find, it's just, it is an industry that there is a lot of upside to it. Of course, you know, whenever you get huge corporations involved, it's, you know, there's a positive and also a very negative effect to it. And, you know, but I think that's with anything, and that's just the way our capitalist system, you know, we're a capitalist society system, and that's, you know, that's how it goes. And I think that if you've got enough, once again, enough education and enough people on board with it, it begins to turn the tide the other way. And, you know, I think we will see it within our lifetimes. I do. I guess I'm just the ultimate optimist about it. And we've been fighting, you know, the prohibition effort's been going on for, you know, 80 plus years of this. And it's time. It's time. And the fact that you said that they are talking about it in the House, even though it won't pass, it's the symbolic, the symbolism of that it's being discussed, and it's an issue that they know that they're feeling, the representatives are feeling from their constituents, that they have to talk about this. They have to bring it up. That's the first step. And yeah, nothing's going to happen overnight. Obviously it hasn't happened overnight, but you know, everybody's just got to keep going, got to keep pressing, keep working together, keep educating, and, you know, take every little win that we can get and move forward another inch. I mean, it really is. It's a battle of inches.
That's right. And dialogue and communication backed up by science. Okay. And
yes,
needless to say, science has played more of a role in our lives in the last 6 months during COVID than at any other time in my lifetime anyway.
I've learned more about the immune system in the last 8 months than I've learned my entire life.
That's right. And hopefully and thankfully, you know, I have quarantined myself. I'm in Massachusetts. We were some of the first states to lock ourselves down in this state. And I'll be honest, I don't want to say I attacked the governor here for shutting down the adult use recreation community, but I did in my own little way. But looking at that, and again, I think he should have opened up curbside delivery or curbside access to the adult use recreational stores who had just opened. I mean, there's one, it took Massachusetts 4 years. They passed it at the ballot box, and I know New Jersey has an opportunity in November to pass adult use recreational this year too. Still took 4 years before Boston was even open to one dispensary, okay? And sure enough, 2 weeks after they opened, they had to close because of COVID. And I might add, there was also a riot, and they got looted as well. I mean, the Kobe Evans and Pure Oasis, who are the principals and the place I'm talking about, the first 100 days of their existence was just, you couldn't have written a script. I mean, it's amazing what that company has gone through, what he's gone through, how he has held himself to a higher standard, literally and figuratively, in so many ways. He does not get down and say, woe is me, I'm so bad. No, he's like, look, we knew what we were getting into when we got into it. We knew it wasn't going to be easy, and we are up to the challenge. And I give him a lot of props for that. In New Jersey, what's your feeling? Is it going to get passed? I know your governor has been pro-cannabis and has wanted to take advantage of it. Still can't get it done.
It was the thing that it was the one platform that he ran on, which I believe is one of the reasons why he even got elected. It's why I voted for him. And it didn't get done through the Senate and the legislation here. It didn't get done that way. And now it's on our ballot for November. It's now the state question. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. You know, I know, like Tara Masu from Blazing Bakery, who is, I know you know her well. And
I don't know her as well as you. I did notice that we've met.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah.
So she's a huge, she's very much involved with the New Jersey Cannabis Association here. And she's been putting out a lot of content, Blaze the Ballot. She's on the forefront of really helping with the education here in the state and educating people and trying to bring awareness to it. But I got to be honest, right now, my feeling is I really do feel like it's a 50-50. I couldn't tell you either way if it's going to pass. I mean, I know I'm voting yes. I know my wife's voting yes on that. But I feel the consensus right now, and this is just my feeling, right? I have no data to back this up, so I'm going to put that out there. I feel like the temperature right now is 50-50, and it really jumps from county to county, even from town to town. You have a lot of towns here that just and they're still buying into the stigma of like, I don't want that here. I don't want a dispensary in my neighborhood, and they're not because they're misinformed. You know, they're very misinformed, and once again, it's the battle of education versus misinformation. And I think New Jersey has got a lot of that going on. So I guess we're going to see what happens.
Those are the NIMBY people, right? Not in my backyard people.
Yeah, you got it. You have a lot of that here, and it really differs. You know, New Jersey is extremely, New Jersey's an extremely diverse state, and you have two halves of this state. I mean, well, I guess you got there's always the Central Jersey, which is always the big joke. Central Jersey doesn't exist at all. Central Jersey exists. I'll just say
What exit?
But there's definitely, North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey. And I mean, you travel within this state and it's like, sometimes you feel like you're in a different state. And it's definitely going to be very interesting though to see what happens. And I just feel like from my point of view, the temperature seems very split down the middle, but ultimately we'll see.
Massachusetts went through that same thing going towards that election 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And the polls were about 50-50. And then I believe it passed 53 to 46 or 47. And
yeah, I think if it passes, it's going to be slim.
Within a year, the question was posed back to the populace in various polls, and sure enough, now it's 60% plus. So it's almost like they're afraid of what they don't know, and it goes back to the not in my backyard. Yet they have no problem with the multitude of liquor stores or bars in the backyard. You know, alcohol has become such a part of our world and our society, and this is where I cringe as an educator, because I see high school kids and college kids binge drinking to excess. And I just
drinking till they pass out.
and it makes absolutely no sense to me that we have doctors prescribing opioids. We have teenagers and college students out there drinking to excess and binging and putting their lives in danger.
Right.
And then this benign plant, it still has this stigma attached to it. And I'm like, you got to learn about it. You take the time before you have an opinion. You want it to be an educated opinion. Isn't that like what we should be doing as humans?
It really should be. You know, and unfortunately it's not always the case, right? I mean, as we've all seen through time, and you know, you could talk to people who are very open to having a very educated discussion about it. And then you've just got people who are very, you know, steadfast and just are set in their ways, and it's hard. It's hard to get through to some people like that. And you're not going to win everybody over, but you know, you do your best. You do your best, and for me, it's always been like, listen, it's non-confrontational. It's not a conflict. You know, my way is not more right than your way. And it's a personal opinion. And if that's the way you truly feel, and you may have had events in your life that have happened, or known people or seen people that have been affected through addiction or different things, and that's got your mindset the way it is, then, hey, you know, like, I'm not here to push anything. I just bring education and awareness. And then you feel that way, you feel that way. Like, totally okay. And I think that's also the thing to say too, is you have to respect others' opinions on it, because it is a personal choice. Like, if you want to use or not use, or choose to accept the information or not, you know, we just have to do our best to get the right information out there. So if someone is on the fence or considering it, they're reading the right stuff, they're listening to the right stuff, they're watching the right stuff, and not some, you know, BS, basically.
Well, or government-backed propaganda, which is how we got here in the first place.
Which is how we got here in the first place.
So there are two books that I always recommend when I talk to people. The Cannabis Manifesto by Steve D'Angelo, who's founded the Last Prisoner Project, and Bruce Barcott's Weed the People, that was turned into a movie. I did a documentary, and Bruce is now the editor at Leafly, and we got an interview with him about a few months ago, and really enjoyed reading that book. And it really documented the beginnings of the movement in Colorado and in Washington State. And I love that Bruce was so open about his own feelings about it, because he was not a user, if you will, a regular user, if you will. And he had to be enlightened by some friends, one in particular who was an attorney for the ACLU, who explained that this is not an issue about drugs. It's a civil rights issue. It's the reason, one of the reasons why law enforcement in this country and people of color in this country feel that they feel threatened by them, because law enforcement can look at and stereotype and profile and say, you know, we should talk to those people. I bet they're packing weed. I bet they have weed.
Right.
And that has been part of that bias literally since Harry Anslinger in 1937, when the DEA was created and they prohibited cannabis because of the influx of Mexican Americans, and then we had Dick Nixon with the, you know, his comment about those hippies and those darkies using that drug too, and you know, creating the Controlled Substances Act. It hasn't worked, and in fact, if anything, it's empowered the white man to strike down and separate from others rather than embracing that. And it's one of the things I've always enjoyed about cannabis, okay? And I have used it medicinally. I've had my medical card since 2013, but I loved the socialization. I love connecting with others. You know, part of your bio is you're a networker, okay? So that's a similar thing that I got to. And one of the ways you network with people is you accept them, or you find something you have in common with them.
Common ground.
Right, and therein lies the rub, because again, once you start with that and you pass it to someone, you get to know them a little bit better, you relax, as opposed to doing shots of alcohol where you want to get in everybody else's face. It just makes no sense to me. And so again, this is a plant that God put on this earth as a medicinal element to engage in all mammals with our endocannabinoid system and balance those neurotransmitters that control the pain threshold and build up your immune system and give us a chance to actually enjoy life to its fullest. And this is me on my bandwagon, but it's exactly what I think others need to hear. And I expect that you share a lot of those same opinions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. And I try to share as many resources as I can when I come across people who are, interested in learning more, because I want to point them in the right direction. And every time like I said, I talk to more people who are introducing me to new resources, new books, new shows, new documentaries, new anything like that is real information. I love to share that and point that into people that I know personally. I send people texts, I send people personal emails. And so, hey, from our conversation last night, take a read of this. This may help educate you on some of the questions I have. Because listen, like I said, I do not have answers to everything. And so if I have people in my network that I can introduce somebody to that will help give them the proper education and the right answers that they need, then I'm happy to do it. I want to do it. I feel like it's a right to do it. I'm obligated to help people out like that.
That's a nice thing. So the RockIt agency, I'm going out on a limb thinking, let's see, you told me
RockIt Growth Agency.
40s. What's that?
RockIt Growth Agency.
RockIt Growth Agency. Okay, pardon me.
That's all right.
If I don't look at my notes, I'm lost.
It's okay.
Where is your music? Tell me about your favorite musicians. Come on. You're from New Jersey, so the first person I think of course, is Bruce. You must be Bruce.
So I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm not a huge Bruce fan. While I do enjoy some Bruce songs, I wouldn't say I've never really gone to see Bruce in concert. I kind of don't have a desire to go see Bruce in concert. I appreciate him. I respect him. Guy's an amazing artist. I mean, no doubt. I just don't connect to everything that he does, but I dig. He's got some songs I totally dig. I would definitely say when my background, I definitely lean more towards the hard rock and metal side of things. That's not to say I don't listen to a lot. I love music. So let me just put that out there. I love music. I listen to all types of music. I really do. I mean, if you looked at my Spotify playlist, my music collection, my records, actual records.
I know. I was gonna say you even know what a record is as opposed to
actual
recording.
Actual records. Just before we even got on, I was just ordering our new record. But I mean, it's a very diverse catalog. I will say my go-to stuff tends to be hard rock, metal. I'm definitely that fan. It's how I grew up. I mean, my first three impressions of music growing up, the first record I ever bought with my own money was Kiss Destroyer. That was I love Kiss. I wanted to be Ace Frehley so bad when I was little. And then that led into my parents were very much in the rock. So I grew up on Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, the Doors, Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, the Black Sabbath. I grew up on that classic music and, Steely Dan. I love that stuff. We were just all out here rocking out to Steely Dan this last weekend. We had playing Steely Dan like crazy. Jimmy Page and Eddie Van Halen were like my gods, and that's why I learned, I wanted to learn to play guitar, seeing how cool, I mean, Eddie and Jimmy, but seeing their styles, I just so infatuated with that. And that just carried over into becoming a very big rock and metal fan, which then also led me into getting heavily involved in the punk and hardcore scene here in New Jersey, especially. And that's where a lot of where RockIt Growth Agency and a lot of that mindset, I always talk about the rock and roll mindset, and that's where that comes from, because being involved in that music scene was very much even the cannabis scene. It's DIY, it's do it yourself, positive mental attitude. If you want to be in a band, you can be in a band. You're going to put your own music out. You're going to put your own shows on. I did all that. I used to put shows on for other bands. I went to shows and I sold records of other bands, and I did all that stuff for years, and it was the foundation of then what I then took to then start Gray Sky Films with, and then what I even carry into RockIt Growth Agency. And the whole idea is like, we treated Gray Sky like we were in a band. And that's how I treat RockIt Growth Agency. I treat this like I'm in a band, and I'm marketing myself like a band. And that's what I teach people to do, is to like change their mindset, get a rock and roll mindset, and treat it like you are in a band. Now, how do you market yourself? How do you get yourself out there? And that's sort of how I come through. So it all sort of, it all connects, and I wear it on my sleeve, man. I mean, it's a big thing I preach is be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it. I mean, that's my mantra. That's how I've lived my life, and it's how, I can help others is just, be yourself. Rock music, rock mindset isn't about the music you listen to. It's about your attitude. That's how I see it.
And I think I found an old friend now, Chris. I really do. You're preaching to the choir here on so many fronts. And I accept a lot of the things you say. In fact, I pride myself in all that too. So I expect that the conversation between us will continue beyond the In the Weeds podcast. How do people get in touch with you at RockIt Agency?
Right. So people could go, the best way to get a hold of me, first of all, I'm everywhere. So really, I mean, I made myself very accessible. So if you want to hook up with me on LinkedIn, you can go to LinkedIn, just search Chris Vaglio. I'm also on Instagram at Chris Vaglio and at RockIt Growth Agency. And of course, you can always visit our website, which is rockitgrowthagency.com. And that's ROCKIT growthagency.com. And there's plenty of ways to get a hold of me. There's actually a link right to my Calendly link, and you can set up time for some virtual coffee, and, we'll just chat. That's it. I just love talking to people.
Or we set up time to do a podcast like we just did. And
Exactly. And I do that too. I also produce, I was doing a show on LinkedIn called My LinkedIn Friends, where I interview people. Now that I'm approved for LinkedIn Live, I am going to start doing it as a live show. And I just launched the RockIt Growth Agency podcast, which is right now I'm repurposing those interviews that I did and relaunching them as audio podcasts. So the first one I just released is actually a guest you just recently had on, Dr. Dave Kunick of a UCS advisor and investor relations. So that's episode 1. That's up now, and that's available where you can get all podcasts. I'm posted on Podbean, but you can get it on iTunes and Spotify and Google Play, and it's a RockIt Growth Agency podcast. So first episode's up. Please subscribe.
Yes, absolutely. And while you're subscribing to his, you can subscribe to In the Weeds.
That's right.
Young and tune in on it. So it's interesting. You're going the LinkedIn Live route, and we're going the Twitch Live route, but we're looking at LinkedIn. And perhaps offline, you and I could chat a little bit more about the benefits, pluses and minuses as we.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying everything out. I'm experimenting. And this is what I always tell everybody else. Try things out, see what works. And that's it. So LinkedIn Live's a new thing. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see how it works. We'll see how it goes.
There you go. For Chris Vaglio, I'm Jimmy Young, the host of In the Weeds. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Weed Talk Now, Weed Talk News, and In the Weeds are all available on most major podcast distributors like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and our friends at clnsmedia.com and our flagship, cannabis.net. So subscribe, share, and like our videos on all the social media networks out there, including LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the WeedTube, and YouTube. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge, and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.